One?
Number one. You ready, Jay? You guys ready? No. You ready? All right. Call to order the City of Haslet Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Tuesday, October 29th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. First, we call to order. Second thing, citizen participation and comments. Do we have anybody, just general comments, anybody?
Nobody online has signified they want to speak.
Nobody online signified. Okay, so no general comments. All right, items of community interest. City offices will be closed November 28th through the 29th in observance of Thanksgiving holiday. Haslet is hiring a city secretary and parks and ground crew leader. So if you know anybody, particularly that's interested, I would say, in the parks and ground crew leader, a young person or anything like that, that might want to get some ground work in, some a little bit of experience in community work and city public work. So that's a good place to start. I would think so. So, Tarrant County voting. Of course, the general elections November 5th. Early voting is going on now. This week, 21st through the 25th, 8 to 5 p.m. And October 26th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I thought they were open this week from 7 to 7. Everything should be 7 to 7, shouldn't it? Yeah, okay. So 7 to 7 is early voting. Okay. The 27th, 10 to 4, 28th to the 31st. Is that where we are now, right? 7 to 7, I'm sorry. Yes. And November 1st, 7 to 7. So, and you can find out where all of the voting locations are at elections.tarrantcounty.tex.gov. So the consent agenda, meeting minutes for our September 24th meeting. We read those. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
All in favor? Raise your hand. Oh, a second.
I second it.
All in favor? Okay. Minutes are accepted as printed, as read. So item number 5, public hearings and action items. So discuss and consider an act regarding the approval of an amendment to the Haslet Zoning Ordinance, amending the Table of Accessory Uses in subsection 4.36 E and F. And Mr. Schwenke.
Oh, just wasn't. Can you hear me now? Very good. Yeah, I want to go ahead and if I can grab the screen from you. Okay, we're going to talk, this first public hearing is in regard to accessory structures. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on. And we talked about this in our work session, and this is the current accessory chart. And it's a little bit wider than what I like to see. So when we were doing our revisions to it, we actually condensed it a little bit so it actually blows it up. But some of the things we added in here were under storm shelters, and the feeling in this commission was that storm shelters should be allowed everywhere in all the different districts. So we put that in as right now, if it's where it is right now, if you have industrial area, you can't have a storm shelter. And they have storms over there just as well as they do in a residential. Next area where you see some changes is under dwelling unit. And it says primary structure, but this is talking about an accessory structure. Should never be a primary. It needs to be a secondary structure. And so we put that in there, and we also marked out where the secondary structure on a lot is a dwelling unit. And then the next change is under residential garages detached. It was not an included use in the Old Town Core as a P as permitted, and it should be. And so that's one of the things we wanted to add back in. So if you wanted to have a detached garage in your backyard, if you could, or another garage somehow to get to it, you just couldn't do it. So this way, you could actually have it. And one good example is the house that's for sale right across the street. There's a cement pad in the backyard that was built for a garage, but without a P there, they couldn't use it for a garage, even if they wanted to. And then the next P is, once this is approved, yeah. Now, there are some other problems with that slab. It's actually inside of some of the setbacks, so they really couldn't use all of it, but they could use a good portion of it. Yes. On the next line, it was under storage shed, and we took the word residential off, and because we wanted to add the P in there under the Old Town for some non-residential uses we have there, such as a church. If a church that exists in the downtown area, Old Core area, couldn't put a storage shed up, and we have one church right down the road who wants to put up a shed, and we said you can't do it at this point until this ordinance is changed.
So are the storage sheds, those are permanent structures?
They're permanent structures.
Permanent. Okay.
Say what? Storage sheds? Yeah, normally, yeah. No, we don't want a Connex box or something like that brought in, but it would be on a slab permanent structure. And then the next area is down under electrical vehicle charging stations. They were allowed in the commercial districts already, but it didn't define residential or commercial. And so what we did is we went back and said, okay, you're seeing those more and more in residential areas, but we didn't want to make them into a commercial use. And so there's some definitions that we did that you have in your packet that actually has a definition of what those things were. And so, and then we looked at outdoor storage, and one of them is instead of just letting outdoor storage appear everywhere, it takes a specific use permit to do that. And that's the last line in the chart. I am going to apologize a little bit for our table here. The last line is outside the grid in the box. That's because the proprietary software that our codification company uses, we have a hard time modifying it. And we struggled with it. The attorneys struggled with it when they reviewed the ordinance. So I said, we'll let it go just like that. It'll be hanging loose, but when we get it codified, we'll make sure that it's up in a chart. And the only one that it happens on is the residential pool house. And having said that, there's just a couple little other changes that we did on the sizes of some of the buildings that Mr. Thedford wanted, and so we made those changes also. And that has to do in some of the written portion in accessory structures. And you should have gotten that information in your packet. So if you have any questions on it, I'll be more than happy to do it. Other than that, you can have a public hearing now.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll open that up for public hearing. Anybody Would you like to speak about that, ma'am? Just state your name and your address, if you wouldn't.
Sandra Smith, 300 Gamble Street. I'm still a little confused about the outdoor structures. Outdoor structures, what are they made of? Are those metal buildings? And the size of those buildings, I don't see it there, but I guess it's in your packet of how large those can be.
Well, they can be,
It's in their packet, right? But I can't see what they are.
it's in the ordinance.
It's in the ordinance.
Yes. This is we're only looking at the parts that we're changing. But the sizes and everything, they stay just the way they were.
Okay. Well, there's some properties around me that are vacant, and I'd hate to see a huge metal building going behind my house. So I really can't speak for it, against it, since I don't really get just what the rules are, but I'll look closer at the tables and the sizes.
Yeah. One of the things about materials, for structures, especially residential structures, is the state law was changed several years ago where cities really can't control what a building is made out of. Whether it's, cities used to have the ability to say, okay, this area has to be all stone or a certain percent stone or brick. But there was a law passed that says the state can't control it. And I always sort of give it when I'm making presentations, and that's a topic that the state of Texas legislated ugly for cities. They legislated ugly for cities. And there's a lot of people that are very unhappy with that because, it's not a self-rule if you have Austin telling you what you have to use for construction materials up here in North Texas, but they did.
All right, very good. Do we have any discussion here?
Just
Mr.
real
Thacker.
quick, I do, on the electric, the home electric, or residential electric vehicle charging stations, we're not going to allow that in the Old Town area, even though we might have residential there? Am I misreading that?
We're showing it not in there, but that's one of the things you can add if you want to,
Okay,
and we probably should.
okay. Because it's there on the commercial, I just didn't know if someone's living there, if they could do it. Or if it doesn't matter.
No, whoops. No, that's one of the things we definitely probably ought to add to it.
Just thought,
Good catch.
okay.
I know last month we talked about those being confined to like inside the garage versus out adjacent to driveway. Has that been addressed any further?
No, because a lot of those plug-ins, they're on the outside of the house. It's usually a box about 2 foot by 3 foot, several inches thick, and it's just attached to the wall. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in a garage.
I think when we talked about it last time, we were going to rely on the HOAs to determine whether they thought that was going to be an eyesore or not.
Unless it's in the covenants and restrictions.
It's not going to happen? Okay.
So, yeah, if it's in a box, if the charger's mounted outside, similar to solar panel, all of the peripheral equipment that goes along with solar panels are usually mounted, hopefully in an inconspicuous area and all that, so, or at least kind of shielded. And the HOAs do, well, at least ours does now, have that in it. But, okay, so the city...
And one of the reasons why we wanted to break up between residential and commercial, we didn't want, as we talked about, we didn't want a residence selling a space in front of their house for commercial use.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Okay. So on commercial, I mean, if they put once again, a Tesla or a government-type charging station out there for their facilities, we don't really care what that looks like if it's on their own property. We were talking about something becoming an eyesore in a subdivision. So that You're saying basically left that up to HOAs to decide what they would do? Or?
Yeah, and not control that. Like I say, most of the time, it's just a real thin box. It's about 2 foot by 3 foot, you know, that,
I've never seen one, so, yeah.
I haven't seen one in the real. All I've seen is pictures of them so far.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of people will put them in the garage. You know, it's not precluding it. It's just,
Yeah, okay, very good.
you'll want to close the public hearing first.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Oh, I thought I did. No, I'm sorry. Well, let's go back to B5A2, close the public hearing at 6:45. Item 3, we already handled discussion and all that. So, do I have a motion recommending approval?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we recommend to the City Council the approval of the amendment to the Haslet Zoning Ordinance, amending Table of Accessory Uses in subsection 4-36E and F.
And do you want to adding
Right.
permitted in Old Town?
Right, and with the inclusion of the permitting of the charging stations in Old Town.
Okay, very good. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. So item 5B, discuss and consider an act regarding the approval of an amendment to the Haslet Zoning Ordinance of the Old Town District Standards. That'd be Old Town OT-C, Old Town Core, and OT-E, Old Town Expansion. Item number 1, staff presentation, Mr. Schwenke.
Chairman Wallach and members of the commission, there are some areas, and I'm going to go ahead and take over the screen again if I could. That one of them could be considered a Scribner's error that's on this chart, which is something that when they were publishing this in our ordinance, if you look at the A's and B's and C's and all the lettering on the graphic and compare those with where they are on the chart, they have slid down 2 spots. And that's, you know, we went back and checked our originals, and our originals had it right, which what was approved, but it didn't show up that way on our documents. So that's not really an ordinance change. That was just a Scribner's error where they made a mistake. It wasn't approved by ordinance. But these are the charts that are in place, and one of the things I want to note, it says front yard, side yards, and side yard adjacent to the street. Well, the new proposed ordinance has some additions to that. All the things stayed the same except where it says like front yard 25-foot minimum from back of curb and 5 foot from property line. And I'm going to go down to this next picture, and it was 25 foot, but this is the graphic that's already in the ordinance, and it was a minimum distance from the back of curb to the front of the building. Plus, there was a 5 foot setback from the property line. So you did both. This is in the ordinance currently. No, it's 25 foot from the curb, but you have a minimum of 5 foot from the property line. It's a both. And the reason for that is a lot of the houses in the old town are currently existing, but if you did it from the property line, 25 foot from the property line, then it's problematic because all of the houses in the old town would be non-conforming to this ordinance. But we did this when we were back here doing it, and it's also on the side where you see there's a 15 foot from the curb to the property line, and then a 5 foot from the property line to the structure. And that was on the side yard. Like I say, this diagram is still in the ordinance and it hasn't been changed. But when you go back and look at this chart, when it says, side yard to a street is 15-foot minimum, well, there's a lot of houses that are a lot closer than 15 foot, to the property line. Some of them are 5 and some of them are 10 foot. And so this actually helps out. It makes things, and it's more of a clarification than anything else because the information is still in the ordinance, but we just wanted to add this verbiage so when somebody comes in and they look at this chart and it says front yard 25 foot, side yard adjacent to the street is 15 foot, it makes some of the lots in town almost unbuildable. And then the last thing is there's a little note at the very bottom, which is number 4 on the chart. And that number 4 refers to lot garage location options. And there's a chart also currently in the ordinance, and this is what it is. And if you look at the option on the right, when there's a detached garage, if it was 15 foot from the property line, you couldn't build much of a garage anywhere on some of the lots. And this way, we wanted to make it 20 foot from the back of curb. And the reason why we wanted to make it 20 foot is because if somebody parks out there on that side, from the curb, from the sidewalk, they wouldn't be parking over it. And that way, if you have a pedestrian, they could still walk on the sidewalk and there's still plenty of room between the sidewalk and the front of the garage. And that's why it's 20 foot. And then also on the diagram on the left, it's 5 foot from the side yard over there. And so we just wanted to make sure that these distinctions were called out in the written portion of it above, and so that there wouldn't be any discrepancy. Okay, we also did the same thing. It's just a little bit different. On this one, they got most of the A's and B's right. They were shifted down a little bit, but not too bad. But we also did the same note, and we see lot garage location options there at the very bottom of the chart, and the other 2 things up above are still the same. I will make one note. This is on the area that's really not developed yet, and those lots are still 20,000 square foot, so they're a lot larger lots than in the downtown. That's what the city council approved, but it can have the same characteristics as the downtown. Old Town E. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. When we brought it to the commission, it was 10,000, but the council bumped it up to 20 when that ordinance was. And it's the same diagram. Oops. Same diagram as we saw before, where you have the 20 foot, what you could do, from the garage location and the rear of the lot and the sides of the lot. But what this does, it just really marries up the chart and the graphics, what the intent was, and hopefully it'll solve any kind of confusion that was out there. But anyway, that's the changes, those notes on that.
Do we have much activity going on in either part of Old Town, C or E?
We really don't at this point. But hopefully in the future we will. We've talked to people who have expressed interest, and so there is going to be, probably after this ordinance is passed, there will probably be at least one house that's probably going to be remodeled and based upon these standards that I know of.
I'm kind of wondering if, when they finally get the extension of the road coming out of Sendera, what's the name of that, anyhow, coming out? Huh?
John Day?
No,
The east-west portion.
the east-west portion tying into 156 and then eliminate all this traffic coming down through.
Yeah,
Main Street.
it's really tough right now because if you're here, 3:30 or to 5 o'clock, it's a constant roar outside here. There's so
You're
much.
here at 7 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah,
or 6:30, or 7 o'clock, 7:30 in the morning, they tell me it backs up all the way to the railroad tracks.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
It's
and you know-
backed up way back there.
At this point, I don't know if I'd want to build a house in the downtown area. Even if I desired to, I wouldn't want to because of all the traffic. But hopefully, when that road is constructed up there, it'll take care of it.
Supposed to eliminate all of that.
Yes, yes. They won't be able to turn right. And likewise, when you're going up that way, you can't turn left. So that's the design of it.
Is that road under construction yet, do you know?
It's coming up soon, I
James,
believe.
do you know? What's that?
Yeah, they've started, we met with the county out there to look at the site. They've staked it, and they're getting ready to mobilize and to start clearing off land.
County's gonna build that, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Is that it?
That's it.
All right. So we'll open to public hearing on item 5B. Anybody want to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Sandra Smith, 300 Gamble Street. I know it doesn't seem like it, but there's more activity in Old Town than you think. There's accessory buildings being put in place. There's houses being renovated. There's been a pool added several years ago that's had a huge impact on my block that I live on. And so these things that y'all look at are important. It's also important that they be enforced, which, you know, there's been some question on that, whether it's been enforced. But I listen to all y'all's meetings because I'm interested in my city. I love my city. And I hear a lot of discussion about HOAs. But like these items tonight are specific to Old Town, and Old Town does not have an HOA. So it's like the Old West in Old Town Haslet, just anything goes. And I've lived here my entire life. I've lived on that block my entire life. And I've never had the issues that I've had in the last 5 years with lots being concreted 90% upstream from me, which has caused flood. I've lived in my house since February 1985, and I've had flooding. I've almost had to buy flood insurance because of the impervious lot that's upstream from me now. So I don't know if it's appropriate here in this public hearing or not, but I want to tell y'all that I appreciate what you do. But I need y'all to understand we don't have an HOA down here. And there are some of us who've lived here a very long time. And so there are people paying attention to these little changes. Like he said, there may be activity after it's done. So if, just as a personal request of mine, please pay attention to those details because not everybody has their neighbor's best interest at heart in the world we're living in today. So appreciate you, and I don't know whether I'm for or against it, but I felt like I needed to come say something because I live here. So thank you for what you do.
And we're all working for you, ma'am. So appreciate your comments, and I would say that if you see things like that, you have questions, then you need to contact Public Works.
Oh, I do.
Okay, I'm sure you do.
Mr. Tucker,
I'm sure Mr. Tucker's aware, yeah, okay. He's very responsive. Okay, anything else on the public hearing? We'll close the public hearing at 6:58. So discuss, act, and consider anything that we want to talk about this. Anybody want to talk about it? Anything to talk about? Nothing? Okay, do I have a motion?
All right, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we recommend to the City Council approval of the amendment to the Haslet Zoning Ordinance of the Old Town District Standards, OTC Old Town Core, and OTE Old Town Expansion.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor? Unanimous? Okay. That was easy. All right. Status of current development projects, residential status report. Things are continuing to move along, I guess, right? Mike's not here, so. Do we want to talk about then future agenda items? Okay.
I know of at least 2 items that should be on your next agenda, and I also just want to make note that will be on the 19th of the month to avoid the holiday. And that is, one of them is going to be the Quick Trip final plat. Yeah. Well, it was going to be on this meeting, but they didn't quite have everything together, and so they asked to put it off till the next meeting. And then Grace Point Church will have a site plan. They want to add a couple little structures and more parking out there for the church facility over there on Schoolhouse Road. But those 2 things, and they just resubmitted. It was going to be on this meeting actually also, but their engineer didn't respond fast enough to get it. And so I just got the information last night, and that's a little bit soon for this meeting, or late for this meeting. I do not. I have no information to share with you on that. I don't know. That's a mayor question.
That is a mayor question. I mean, I've seen the schematics of it, and it's not a very good design. So I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, some of the problems that the design had people cresting over the railroad track, and then you have a 7% or higher grade going down to a potential stoplight, or it would be at a stoplight, and stopping distance on inclement weather, it wasn't going to happen. And so there are discussions. What'd they do? Mm-hmm.
But they still kept traffic on the ground that wanted to go in the area, otherwise you fly over and go.
Yeah. And like I say, there are all different kinds of options that are being discussed, but it's not been settled at this point just what's going to happen. But all I know is when you cross a railroad track, you have to have at least 17 foot of clearance. And when you have to get up that high and then come over a hill and you're going downhill already, it's tough.
Going eastbound on that sort of grade is problematic, and going westbound with fire trucks is probably problematic. Getting over those in the end. Okay, anything else?
That's it.
Okay, so we will adjourn. So we will adjourn at 7:03. Okay,
That was a record.
not quite. Don't tell Greg how fast he gets.
I was gonna ask